Dream big, never stop dreaming because you can do whatever that you want as long as you believe in your dreams.
Welcome to the Dare to Dream Productions podcast. Today we have a very special guest who I'm also friends with and have worked on her hit LGBT plus comedy web series Chapstick, which was such a blast. Charlotte is seriously one of the best directors I've worked with because she's so down to earth and makes everyone feel valued on set. Please welcome comedy writer director Charlotte Kennett.
Now there should be a huge eruption in post, I'm hoping. I'm just kidding. But it's so good to be here. Thank you so much for that really lovely introduction. I sound like I have so much humility, and I hope that's still true. But yeah, I am so happy to be here. Bridget, thank you. I'm so glad we've remained friends even since the first time we kind of worked together back in Chicago when I was making my first web series. So this is really lovely. I'm excited to get into some conversations with you guys.
Thank you for joining us. And so tell us a little bit about what you're working on now. I know that you had a pilot and then also like Psycho Baby.
Sure, yeah. So I directed a pilot for these two writers, Camille Corbett and Kion Hersey. They've both written on Netflix shows. Kion was a part of Hamilton. So they're both, great. I mean, so amazing. You look at them and you're like, wow, they're really doing things. So I was really honored when they asked me to direct their pilot for them, Crystal and Chelsea. And then, yeah, I've been working on some of my own things. During the pandemic, I actually shot another short film / proof of concept for a feature called All We Have, which is a romantic drama set in the pandemic. So that's in post. And then Psycho Baby, my queer dark comedy, is also still in post, and it's almost done. It's super close. It should be out at the end of June, if not early July. So really fun things are like on the horizon, and I feel like you're always in a state of waiting for things to be released, but especially now, I think because of the pandemic and everything, the pilot has been released, for Crystal and Chelsea, and that project was a while ago. And then I've got these two projects in post, and then I'm currently, literally, as of Monday this next week, I am directing my second pilot for another group of writers. It's not my writing. Again, I've kind of been recently getting into a pattern of like getting attached to projects as a director. So just basically like any work that comes my way where people feel super passionately that they like my style or they like my voice and they want, my help bringing their characters and their story to life, I'm always so eager and excited to jump on a project and get more experience directing, because something I've learned is just, the more you do it, the more comfortable in it you feel. And then like it leads to more opportunities, and just like meeting people and being on set, there's nothing like it. So I'm really excited for the projects I also have that I want to shoot after this pilot. I definitely plan to shoot some more of my own stuff. I've had a web series in the works for a while that I've wanted to shoot and make another one for YouTube, because I really enjoyed my first experience making a web series with Chapstick. And I've just kind of been waiting for the exact right thing, and I'm realizing I'm probably being too precious with it. So I just need to start making things that also bring more joy to me in the moment. And sometimes you just get in your head, you're like, oh, maybe I should do this. But the truth is you should just follow whatever you're feeling in the moment. And that's also something that I've learned, is to just be flexible with your ideas and flexible with the projects that are in front of you. If something's there and the opportunity is there, you have to seize it, and not delay on something. And I'm so lucky and grateful to be getting the opportunity to develop and grow and learn on other people's projects with other people's money. I think like that makes me really excited, because it's people taking not only a risk on me, but they're giving me a gift, the gift of creation and the gift of learning, to then take to my own work. And hopefully then when I'm putting either my hard-earned dollars toward a passion project or getting it funded, I feel a lot more rooted in myself and the direction I'm headed. So experience is the master at the end of the day. So I'm very grateful.
Seems like you've been very busy. That's great, though.
Yeah, I have been busy, yeah.
I'd love to also talk about like your transition from being a Columbia student to moving to California because a lot of
Sure.
us are like seniors and want to
Yeah.
do similar things.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's such an exciting time for you guys. I love that time. You feel so alive. Like in your senior year, you're so ready to just like go do something different and actually put in the work of what you've been working toward in your degree. So I just think like, oh my God, just enjoy these last few weeks or month or how much ever you have left and just like really embrace it, because once you get out there wherever you end up going to like start your career, I mean it just feels like it never stops, and also it's a totally different hustle than school. And so, instead of every day having homework or classes, you're just like, your homework is to find your next job, your homework is to find more people to connect with. Your homework is creating things, either passion projects or whatever that, or spec commercials or spec music videos, whatever you want to do. And just, I find that, you constantly are having to prove yourself no matter how long you've been in the industry. I think people are always like, well, what's next? Well, what's next? And I think having that answer and just running as fast and hard as you can out of the gates of college is the best thing you can do for yourself. I would say, when I think of what I did, which was I moved here, like I decided after graduating Columbia that I was going to go, globe trotting for a bit. I saved up some money and I was like, you know what, if I move to LA, I'm going to just be stuck there and I'm probably never going to leave again. So I better go travel and enjoy myself. And so I did that. I traveled for a few months. I got to see like a ton of countries. I think I went to 9 before I moved to LA. And it was such an amazing experience. Very grounded, learned a lot, saw a lot. I've always loved traveling. It's definitely a privilege to be able to travel and save the money to travel and then try to do it on like a really tight budget. But I do think when you're a storyteller, it's so important to see how other people live and what other countries are like, and just get a better perspective for yourself, as well as just lived experience. I think as I'm aging, I'm experiencing different things though that are allowing me to see new perspectives on life and how other people have been going through similar things, but their point of view is so special and innate to them. So how can we make space for other kinds of storytellers? How can we champion other people in this industry to make sure that a lot of the voices that have been left behind for a long time are now coming to the forefront? And I think a big part of that is really understanding the circle of life, as corny as that sounds, but just like understanding. Sorry, I thought I lost you guys, but my computer just has a virus. It's fine. Yeah, and then when I moved out here, I got a job within 2 months as an office PA on the show Counterpart for Starz. So my first thought was, I need to get onto some TV show in any position, either as a PA. I mean, I had PA'd a ton in Chicago on top of making my own stuff. But I just felt I need to get out there and get into a position where I'm either assisting like a producer, where I'm an office PA, where I'm running first team, something. Like I need to get into the world so I can start meeting people. I drove cross country with my sister. We took a really shitty van. It was like one of my dad's vans. It was like 1999. I don't even know, Town and Country, a Chrysler, and it barely made it across the country with all my shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. But when I got here and my sister left and I like didn't have a place to live yet and I was staying in an Airbnb, I was like, what the hell have I done? Like this is going to be crazy. I was so confused by the highways. It was just a lot in that moment. And then I just realized like, no, I'm here for a reason. I have a plan of what I want to do. I just need to get a job. I need to just start networking with as many people as possible. And so that's what I did for the next like 2, maybe 2.5 months. I networked my little fanny off until I found myself in a position where I was getting hired to be an office PA on that show. And it was such a great experience. I did meet so many people on that show that I'm still in contact with to this day. And then it did lead from one thing to the next. You know, after I had that job, it was much easier for me to then have more financial security to take off 2 months or 3 months while I looked for my next assistant job to like make my own stuff. So kind of when I first got here, I got into this mode of I'm going to be an assistant for a while, save up money, not live too crazy, right? I mean, you're working so much, like you can't even, you don't really even have time to spend a lot of money. So it's good. And so you save anything you can. And then like when you have some free time or the job ends, as most do, unless you're an assistant full time to somebody, you then make stuff with your friends, with other people. You do your best to pull it all together, shoestring it, and then you put something out, and you hope that as you do things like that, as you network with musicians or production companies or this and that, you slowly start to build a better foothold in the entire industry. And so I think that was my goal, you know, moving out here was like, okay, I hope a year in, I've worked on some cool stuff. I've assisted cool people. I have a better understanding of LA. And I definitely achieved that within my first year. And it's been hard though, too. I mean, I was a showrunner's assistant as well for a Jack show who makes like Broad City and all of those big shows. So that was like a really great experience. And I learned so much being like the right hand to a showrunner. But sometimes like things are really difficult, you know, and you find yourself in a position where then you're out of a job and you're feeling really down on your luck. And I think you have to be your motivator at the end of the day of how am I going to turn this crappy situation into a learning experience, or how am I going to, you know, launch off of this, even though I feel really crappy, and find my next thing. So when the showrunner or assistant, the showrunner's assistant position ended and I didn't have work anymore and nothing was lined up, I was feeling so bummed out. I was like, wow, I had this great run with this show, and you know, now the show's not going anymore. It ended up getting canceled. I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? You know, what's my next move? And it was weird. I actually interviewed like 3 weeks later, after I was beating myself up so bad, like feeling like I just had hit a wall. I ended up interviewing at a different company called Kyra TV to be a showrunner for their internet series. So that was really interesting, you know, because I had simultaneously between all of these assistant jobs been making stuff of my own. It led me to a place where then when I was out of that job, people were like, well, maybe you could do this. And I walked right into that office and I said, look, I'm not ready to be a showrunner for any of your series, to be completely honest. Like, I think I do an okay job. I was like, but I would do much better as a director / producer for you guys. And I think you deserve to hire someone who knows a little bit more than me. But like, I do feel so honored that like literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was a showrunner's assistant and now I'm interviewing to be a showrunner for a digital series on YouTube. You know, it was like a huge light bulb moment for me where it's like, the second you start calling yourself something and showing up for the job you want is the second you're going to start being interviewed for that job. You know, you are more than just an assistant, even when you are an assistant. So even when I meet other assistants, I'm like, okay, fuck, here comes the next James Cameron. You know, we just don't know, you know, you never know who the next person is going to be. So trying to be kind to everybody and seeing that everybody's out here in the same struggle, everybody's trying to make stuff, write stuff, get it made, battling it, realizing how tight-knit the community is for greenlighting things, and like, you know, realizing it's going to take a lot to get there. And so, yeah, I think like you just got to get out here. That's what I tell people. And you just got to start running and making those connections. And the transition will be easier if you just believe in yourself and, you know, gas yourself up, because you are the only person who's going to have your back at the end of the day. And I did go on to direct and produce for Kyra TV, and that was an amazing experience. And I did basically talk myself into that job. And I think so much of that is having your own back and believing in your work.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Did you have scripts like ready to go like when you moved to California?
I did, yeah. I had 2 original pilots, and I had tons of ideas for things. Like, of course, an idea is very different than having a real tangible script, but I had written many scripts because in my time at Columbia, luckily I was in a lot of classes that was like adaptation and like pilot, writing a pilot. And in every one of those classes, you did come out with a piece of work that was pretty good, and then if you continued to work on it, it was good enough to maybe pitch. But to be completely honest, like, you're going to come out here with maybe one script to maybe none. And that's okay, because no one's really going to read your script the first year you're here, I don't think. I mean, I had a very difficult time trying to be read in my first year of living here. And it wasn't actually until literally like 4 months ago, a pretty big literary management company reached out to me cold and was like, hey, do you have anything you'd like for us to read? And that was the moment I realized, oh, they do just reach out to you. You don't need to reach out to them. Once you start kind of popping up on their radar, I think they've already kind of got their eyes on you. And it is really difficult to get read super early on in your experience in LA. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible. If you're highly motivated and you know the right people, it's definitely possible. I just didn't when I first moved here.
Congrats on that, though. That's so exciting.
It is. I haven't heard back from them, but it's still exciting. People have told me sometimes it takes like 6 to 8 months for them to get back to you, which I'm like, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But it still just even feels exciting to have had them reach out and like ask for samples, And in the meantime, I'm not going to slow down what I'm doing because I don't personally feel I need agents or managers. I'm more like, you are your agent and manager until someone comes along who presents you with a better alternative. And getting too hung up on having an agent or a manager is going to set you back.
That's a big discussion. We always talk about that in film school. Is like, that's how you get your foot in the door, having the agent or manager. But yeah, that's interesting.
I definitely disagree with that. Like, I know so many people who make their own opportunities and end up getting hired into rooms, and then they have to get an agent or manager because they're in a room and they need someone legally who can speak on their behalf, So I think for everybody that journey of getting either a manager or an agent or both looks very different. I think for some people, they get lucky, luck/hard work in combination, and they get signed early. But I think like the odds of that are really low. And I think more than anything, you want to make sure you're signed with the right agent or manager, not even just at a huge one. Like, who cares if you're signed at one of the big guys if they're not going to actually take care of you? You want to wait till you have somebody who's really in your corner, believes in your voice, and is going to champion you and fight for you and negotiate for you like no other. And so if that takes 10 years, you would rather wait that 10 years and have someone right for you on your team than have someone your first year out here, but you're just a name on their list and they don't really care about if you get work or don't get work,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's kind of my viewpoint on it. You are your own agent and manager until you get one, until you're really actually ready and you're at the place where people are wanting to bring you on things. And you're like, I don't want to look at this contract. I have no idea what they're talking about. Once the paperwork gets so confusing that you're like, okay, I need someone to look at this, I think that's the point where you need an agent or manager, but not really before that.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So you worked on a handful of commercial work with large companies like Adidas and IMG Models and Honda.
Yeah.
How did you get that work?
That was myself. Again, no manager or agent was necessary in that process. Basically, like, I just work and make my own things. And then occasionally I get reached out to by companies. Occasionally I'll see a post on a Facebook group, or I'll even respond to like ads. And surprisingly, sometimes I get responses and then we move forward discussing. But like IMG specifically, I shot their quarantine video with their models, and it was a TikTok mixed with what are our models up to during quarantine, and it was all on drone. I actually shot it and I directed it and I edited it, so it was quite the project. And the experience of droning models whose faces are worth that much was it was stressful. I was too close for comfort in a lot of moments. This one model kept getting so close to the camera. I was like, please back up. It was so stressful. But because it was like in the peak, in the height of the pandemic, it was like trying to figure out ways to like make content that were safe for everybody. And so drone to me was like the immediate go-to. Like I can be 200 feet away from them, and so with that pitch to them, and then they reach out to me because I met someone in all my days going out and networking. I met someone who worked for them, and then they thought of me when they were like, we want to do some sort of campaign, do you want to do this? And I was like, yes, I want to do this. I want to do all of it. I want to direct it and edit it and shoot it. And they were like, okay. And it was one of their most successful videos to date. It did super, super well on their Instagram. And I feel really proud of it. And I think from there, you just keep building things and picking up clients along the way. And of course, when you have other bigger projects like that you can then refer back to when you're trying to get another gig, it helps them feel a little bit more secure in you. But yeah, I think like you just have to make your own luck sometimes, and you need to like reach out to people and businesses and, just offer what you can. Say, this is what I do. Here's my website. If you ever want to make, digital content, please reach out to me.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you also directed and produced some YouTube shows in California. What was that like?
That was great. That was really great. That was for Kyra TV, who I was kind of talking about how I interviewed potentially for a showrunner position, which was hilarious to me. But yeah, that was great. I directed and produced the holiday episode of Neva, which at the time was the #1 fashion show on YouTube. And that was really, really cool. That experience was awesome. I loved directing those girls. They were just, they're all so talented, and it was just a blast. It was unlike anything I had ever done before, so it felt very like, whoa, what is this, But it was cool to do fashion. It was cool to do like a more like vlog style / talk show. There were parts of it that were very stylized and sit down, and there were parts that were very on the go and moving kind of docu style. So it was fun to blend all of the different styles into one show. Less narrative though, so for sure. And then the second show after that went really well. I then got hired on as a contracted director and producer for a show called Field Trip, which featured the previously famous and well-known YouTubers Enya, Drew, and Josiah. Esme was from Neva. But Enya, Drew, and Josiah are very, very funny. They're very good in their own right. Like, they don't need very much, or I didn't feel that they did. So they already knew like how to play to camera and like how they wanted to do things. So it was much easier to work on Field Trip in that sense, because we had, performers, really, essentially comedians, YouTubers who already had such a great idea of the direction they wanted to take everything. So a lot of that show was, producing it and making sure we were setting everything up for these kind of improvised but narratively outlined setups and episodes. So like they were all pre-planned, but then like in the moment, kind of like Nathan For You, you never know what's going to happen, So like we set up a situation and then we kind of see what happens. We had narrative beats that we would break down and pre-plan. And then we'd be shooting them and we'd be shooting the episodes. And, if they went differently, then they went differently. And that was just part of, I think, the charm of doing a more improvised sketch style docu show. So that was still really fun because there was, narrative elements to it. But I also love improv, and coming from an improv background myself in Chicago, it felt like the best combination of all worlds. So I was very lucky to work on that show with Kyra and work with Enya, Drew, and Josiah. They're really funny. We all love watching them to this day.
Yeah, that seems really fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Also, congrats on the pilot, Crystal and Chelsea.
Yeah,
I
thank
watched
you.
some of it and I'm excited to watch more. And it's such a
Yeah.
unique concept with like the tarot
Yes.
reading.
Yes.
So, can you pitch us like an elevator pitch for those who haven't seen it?
Sure. Oh gosh. So again, it's not my writing. I didn't write the show, but I did direct the pilot. So the log line I believe they have for it is like, when Crystal, a psychic that scams white women into being less racist, scams Chelsea, a white woman set on having the Pinterest perfect life, she quickly realizes Chelsea isn't like her average customer. So basically, she is like Crystal, who's the lead, played by Camille Corbett, who also co wrote the show and co created the show. She's like a scammer, and she likes scamming white women and trying to make them less racist and this, that, and the other. And it's a really funny and engaging concept. And then you get Amanda McCants, who plays Chelsea, and she is such a powerful comedic actress that, you know, she comes in just blazing. She's so comes in so hot to that situation, and when she kind of realizes she's being scammed, it just turns like kind of the whole world upside down. And they definitely develop this kind of unlikely friendship um, in this kind of like bizarre world where this happens, you know. I think the show has a lot of great undertones of like privilege, of spirituality, yeah, of just understanding kind of like the world we're living in today, and how white people can be very complacent with their racism and not actively practicing being anti-racist. Yeah, so that show definitely has a lot of those undertones, while also being very over the top and taking an idea that's just, Crystal likes to scam white women into being less racist, and, you know, does like tarot card readings with them and then pretends she can see their lives and stuff. And then she ends up forming this unlikely bond with this really basic white girl. And, you know, by some sort of events, they help each other grow and learn from each other. It was a lot of fun to direct. And yeah, all the actors were super talented. You know, Camille, who she's one of my friends, she asked me to come on and direct it. And I was like really honored, but I was like, dang, this is quite the undertaking. You know, it was a lot for me to think about, how am I going to do this and how am I going to show this balance? So a lot of research, a lot of listening, a lot of time, you know, taking a step back and allowing things to happen the way that they should. Camille was very deeply involved in the process, thank God. And just having a lot of support around me during that time. We shot it really fast. We shot it in 5 days here in LA. It just all happened really quickly. So yeah, I really love that pilot. It's so much fun to watch and like just get excited about, you know, the idea of it. And I know that Camille and Kion, the co-creators and writers, are currently trying to like shop it around and share it with their network connections. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, it's really great for them to have this pilot sample. Like, it'll definitely help them get other projects greenlit. Because as we know, it's like, you just have to be making stuff. Like I'm saying to you guys, like, it's so important when you get the chance and you have the emotional energy to make something and you have a good idea, you just have to make it.
I saw that you crowdfunded for it. Did you also crowdfund Chapstick?
So I didn't fund for Crystal and Chelsea. That would have been Camille. I believe she did raise some money for it. I think she raised like close to 10 grand. But yeah, so she definitely crowdfunded for the pilot. I believe she also got outside investors to invest some money in it. And she invested like personal money into the pilot as well. So I think all in all, a lot more was spent on it than what was crowdfunded. But yeah, for Chapstick, I did crowdfund, I guess. I did it on Indiegogo, and I believe to this day you can still go see exactly how much we raised, so you can fact check me. But I think for season 1 we only raised like $1,500, and then for season 2 I think it was 3,000 or 3,500, and that was for the whole season.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was no money. But like, I
You
wasn't
did it.
trying, I know, and I wasn't trying to raise a lot of money back then. I was like, I just need a little bit of money so I can like rent additional gear or like pay for everyone to have a meal. You know, at that phase, I wasn't like paying people, you know, which is such a big cost now. Like, I was just using my friends, or I was using my camera and stuff like that. So like, a lot of those costs were, it just wasn't the same as what it is when now I'm out here and everything costs so much more to make, because, you know, there you have to pay people a certain amount. You know, everybody has a day rate, and it's much harder to get people to do things for like free or as like your friend, or, you know, if you're lucky, you have a group of people around you who also want to make passion driven projects. But it does become intensely more difficult once you live in LA to do that for super, super cheap, because now you're in an environment where a lot of people are doing this professionally and getting paid to do it professionally all the time. So why would they want to do it for your thing for free? You know, it can be more difficult. I would say Chicago was a much easier place to make content for like almost no money than LA.
So how do you like get the money to make your projects then? Like, is it like yeah, like how do you get the money?
Secret ways. You got to work hard. Basically, the way I've gotten money for like Psycho Baby and for All We Have is finding private investors, not family. The people I got to invest in both projects were not family. I reached out to people who had interest in producing, who had interest in being executive producers, and funded it that way. So basically, they own a percentage of the project, a pretty large percentage of the project. When, you know, you're starting to bring in outside money, you basically have to give them equity and back end points if you're gonna take money from them. You always make sure they understand maybe this won't go anywhere. Maybe it's just a passion project, but if it does, you own X amount of shares in this. So if it sells somewhere or someone wants it, of course they get that. You know, that's a perk for someone if they trust your vision enough, you know, is they want to work with you because they're hoping, okay, maybe if it's good enough, it'll sell to Netflix. Maybe if it's good enough, we can like get into the right rooms. But you definitely don't want to make promises to anybody, because as we all know, filmmaking can also be a huge loss of money. You know, there are a lot of projects that never end up anywhere. And so I think before you start looking for investors ever, make sure, you know, you're going about it in the right way. With Psycho Baby, I funded, I would say, 85% of Psycho Baby. So I put like 85% of the budget from my own earned income into the project. So again, you don't, if you ever can, like, I think the struggle of a filmmaker is funding your own projects oftentimes, you know, like it's the unfortunate aspect of filmmaking and wanting to be a director and writer and helming your own projects, you know. I've talked to a lot of people about this. It's just filmmaking and directing specifically, like wanting to be the filmmaker, you know, like the writer and the director. It feels like a rich man's game. And what I mean by that is it's just like, you see all these other people who came up, like, I hate to say his name, but like Woody Allen, gross, disgusting. We don't like him, but him or James Cameron or Steven Spielberg, these people who were like, wow, it's like oftentimes we don't think about the fact that they came into this very rich already and they had parents who had network connections. And you know, having money to begin with makes filmmaking as a journey much easier because you can afford to fund a project yourself and then you own 100% of it, you know. And so in that same breath, I think you can't compare yourself to rich people ever. And being aware that there are a lot of rich people out in LA and in other cities trying to become the next big filmmakers is something you must understand. Because it's something I learned the hard way. It's like, how are they doing that? You know, how are they getting this money? How did they get a budget of $150K for their feature, you know? And then realizing, oh, their family gave them that money. Their family had enough money to give them that money without blinking twice about it.
So
that's important. Yeah. It's a rough subject.
Yeah, but it's very honest, like.
Yeah. I mean, I literally know people who are like, yeah, my dad gave me the money. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, my dad wouldn't give me 20 cents, you know? So it's just a different vibe, you know? It's a different struggle for people who don't come from money or come from a family who can like support their passion. So you have to be the champion. Oftentimes you have to fund your own projects and save up.
So I'm very excited to watch Psycho Baby, and can you talk a little bit, well, you talked about the plot, but getting it made and like getting the cast and everything ready to go?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I mean, I've told you a little bit about it, but it's basically about like a psychopath who receives a love letter from this girl who's basically like, you know, professing her feelings. Like, I want to date you. I want to be with you. And Andra, a psychopath, is like, I can't reciprocate that. Like, I can't do this. This girl's like all over me. And so it's kind of like that idea of it becomes a turbulent relationship that she tries to say no to. And she tries to be like, I'm not ready for that. And then the relationship is kind of thrust upon her. And it's kind of like, you know, just two natures, two humankind natures that are very predisposed differently, even down to like, you know, being more like, you know, I'm trying to think of the exact word, like, I'm totally blanking, but like neurotypical. So someone who's neurotypical versus someone who's not, and like them running head on into a relationship is a very interesting dynamic to watch play out. Another reason I wanted to make it was I just felt like a lot of the media that surrounds psychopaths always makes them murderers and these characters that, you know, just drag dead limbs around and are very secretive, you know, very Dexter-esque or American Psychopath. And as we know, there's a lot of psychopaths around us at any given time. You know, if you're on a train car in Chicago, you know, there's at least one or two on there with you at any given moment. And so they're not murdering people day in and day out. The media would like you to believe that you should maybe be afraid of them, but I wanted to portray them in a way that was a little bit more honest, which is just they have more blunted emotions. They're a little bit more honest. Maybe their love for you isn't really love as an emotion, but rather loyalty as a character trait. And so how do those things interact with each other? And so a lot of the pre-production process for me was actually interviewing psychopaths here in Los Angeles, both anonymously and in person, and getting those experiences hands-on to make sure that I was, one, writing a script that was accurately reflecting how psychopaths feel they engage in romantic relationships. I didn't want to go into writing a script and then producing something that I felt wasn't living in the realm of something that was true. So yeah, that's what I did. A lot of the pre-production process was making sure I was telling this story as honestly as I could, and then also integrating aspects of my own life where I felt like I did date a psychopath, which is what made me want to write this script. So I dated a girl that I felt, you know, we weren't, you know, predisposed in the same way. I come from a more of a love addict background, and she definitely had more muted emotions that made me think, oh God, you know, what's going on here? And we eventually did have these conversations, and it did lead to a lot of, you know, uncoverings of the truth and this, that, and the other. And it's not to be like, oh, she's a psycho. Like, I just think like we had a different kind of relationship that showed me, you know, emotions aren't all just one thing, and not everything is as it seems. And, you know, every person is different down to like every last cell in their head. And maybe an understanding and seeing characters that are a little bit different and aren't neurotypical is important for our society. And it's important for different subgroups of people to like understand that like not everybody is the same. And so writing a queer story that came from my life and then feeling like I wanted to tell it in a way that was accurate was really a calling and very important to me. So that's what Psycho Baby's about. And then the pre-production process was finding a producer to bring onto it that I felt would really help me tell the story. Her name was Hadley Hendon. She didn't die. I said it like she's dead. She's still very much alive. And she really helped me from start to finish, plan how we were going to shoot Psycho Baby. We shot it actually in her house at the time here in Los Angeles, so that didn't hurt. We didn't spend, money on the location, which was that's usually such a big cost. And we hired actors that we went through a long, extensive casting process to find the right, girl to play Sadie, who is the character. She's like a manic pixie dream girl, kind of love addicty, tons of emotions, tons of feelings. And then Andra, who's the psychopath, was played by my friend Savannah Summers, who was absolutely born to play this role. It was partly written around her. I wrote it having her in mind the whole time as her to play Andra. And she's also queer, and they're both in the LGBTQ community. So definitely having representation in the casting is always super important to me. And so, just making sure like I was telling a story that felt good, that had actors in it who really were a part of the community and not like just straight actors. I think that's really important. I don't know, it bothers me sometimes when I feel like people don't try to incorporate LGBTQ people into their projects when it's so much easier to find them than people ever think. And it was such a great experience. I'm so excited for people to watch it. I mean, I can't even believe how it all came together. I think the opening shot is one of my favorite shots of the entire short film / proof of concept. It is a proof of concept for a feature, but I don't have any like, it must turn into a feature. For me, I want it to be a calling card of something I can show people and be like, this is the style I really like to do. If this fits what you like, maybe I can pitch you an idea for something different. Or if someone likes it enough that they're like, no, we want to make this as a feature, then I'm down to make the feature of Psycho Baby. But you just never know where things are going to lead. And I try not to get too far ahead of myself in that way.
I love that. I'm so excited. Where do you think, are you going to festivals, or what do you plan to do with it?
So my first plan is to keep it on a private link and share it with all the people in the industry that I know, in hopes that maybe it could lead to something where maybe it gets a little bit of interest, or maybe it helps me get a manager or agent like interested in me more than they are right now, like really interested, where they're like, okay, we really like her, we want her, So I think like I'm just hoping that lots of people get to watch it. I see if there's any bites. I see if any production companies are interested. I do have a few pretty big production companies set to watch Psycho Baby. I feel like really shocked that they want to watch it. I think we'll just see how it goes. Like we'll see how they react when they watch it for the first time. It's very possible they'll be like, we don't think it's for us, or thanks for sharing it, we would love to see the stuff you do in the future. I mean, anything is a good answer, as long as they're not like, we fucking hated it, I think that's a good answer. But I'm hoping to just first do that, because I know I can't, if I put it in a festival and it shows anywhere, a lot of people in the industry won't care anymore. Like sometimes they're like, we want it first before anybody else has seen it, So I just want to first do the private link thing. Then if nothing comes of that, I definitely plan to do the festival route. Not too many. I mean, I don't want to go crazy. Like I'm also just excited to release Psycho Baby. So it's like, I don't know. I'll probably do a few festivals, see if it gets into anything. And then, I'll release it either on Vimeo or YouTube, probably after it does a huge festival run, if it doesn't already have a home somewhere else.
Very cool. And I love how you were talking about like the representation, because how I feel about your work, you're always like so, like, it matters so much in your work, but it also like, you don't make it like it's not a coming out story, and that's what I love. Like,
we can't. No, I don't like coming out stories. I'm out, honey. I'm here. And as a queer person, I already want to see I want to see stuff that I don't have to watch their tumultuous journey of telling their parents they're gay or whatever, because it's painful. I think it's just like triggering, you know, it's like, it's terrible. Like, I'm not trying to say these stories aren't still valid in culture. I think it is good for tons of heterosexual people to see how painful it is to come out, and maybe someday I will make a movie that's a coming out story, and then we can refer back to this and everyone will be like, I thought she said never. And that's definitely possible. But I like to live in the world where like my characters are gay or queer or whatever they are, and there are no more questions about it. It's just them living and not being apologetic for their existence anymore.
Exactly, and we need more of those. We need
Yes,
it.
we do. They're either dying or like crying, apologizing. I'm like, what's going on? This is not good.
Yeah, and the couple just ends up breaking up, or it's just like a sad ending.
Oh, it's so sad. Like, gay stuff is so sad. I'm like, we really need some good vibes up in this bitch. It's bad.
So before I'm gonna ask, like, we have a little audience here. Does anyone have
Yeah.
any questions for Charlotte? You could either type them in the chat or come on
Let's
live.
go.
Yeah, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So as I told you earlier, I'm currently focusing on screenwriting right now, but I
Sure.
do want to get into directing.
Okay.
But for me, I transferred to DePaul my sophomore year, and I really got into screenwriting like last year, my junior year. So I'm kind of
Okay.
still new to the game, and I want to get into directing, but I've
Yeah.
never, because Corona kind of like messed
Yeah.
everything up.
I messed it
I've
up.
never really gotten the chance to work on like a project, but I want to do one when I'm out in LA. And it would be
Yeah.
like my first project working. So my question to you is like, where do you start as like a first
Yeah.
time director?
Honestly, anywhere, wherever your interests are. Like if you write a short, I would say start with a short. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Shoot something that's going to be under 5 minutes. That way you save yourself a lot of headaches. It doesn't have to be super funded. Like even sometimes I tell people, if this is your directing debut and you've never done it before, shoot a scene. Shoot one long scene, you know, write a really complex, engaging scene between two people that you're trying to get something across. There's underlying messages or strong POV, and make that your jumping off point. You know, like tell a story you really want to tell, and just don't make it too long. You know, because you want to first gain the experience and first see, do I even like this? You know, like, do I like working with actors? Do I like the process of production? Do I think it's too stressful? Or is it something that literally lights a fire for you and you're like, okay, now that I've done this, I want to do so much more of this. I want to do an even bigger project. I want to do a pilot. I want to do a web series, whatever it is. I would just say bite off a smaller chunk before going all the way in, because you want it to be a stress-free process the first time. That way you can actually enjoy it and really see if you're going to like it. So really anything, a drama, a comedy, sci-fi, whatever, just write something short that you feel is very in your style, in your voice. Lean into your voice, lean into what makes you different, lean into a story you want to tell, and then tell that story to the best of your ability with limited location and limited number of actors.
Thank you.
You got it. I'm excited to see what you make.
Hi. I was also gonna ask a question. Hello, nice to meet
Hi.
you.
Nice to meet you.
I was just curious, since you're both a writer and you've also directed things that other people have written, if you have any advice for writers trying to approach any like producers or directors that they know with like a script, like do you have any kind of like tips, since you kind of have different perspectives on that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, for me, anytime a writer or producer has reached out to me and been like, hey, we like your stuff. Are you interested to read our script? I am almost always down to at least read the script and see what they've got going on. So I would say just do it. Like just reach out and make sure you first have the material that you want to make. Like make sure your script is really tight. Make sure it's exactly what you want. Maybe not still in the editing phase or still the ideas phase. Make sure it's something that's really rock solid that then you can take and kind of package out to a producer or a director. Of course, course, the first natural steps are to attach a producer and a director when you're in those early kind of startup phases of starting a project. Because if you just intend to be the writer, of course, you need to get a producer and a director, or someone who's willing to both direct and produce on board to like really just fast track the project, to then start the process of, okay, now what's our budget, or what are we trying to raise? You know, do we need to raise money on like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, or do you have funds that you want to use? What, you know, camera do we want to use? Who are we thinking is going to be in this? Then we start casting stuff. So you want to find someone who's going to end up championing your work and liking it as much as you like it. So finding a director who, one, should tell that story is a really big part. So if this is a very female driven story or a gay story, try to find somebody who fits that voice and that POV to be the director of that story, because they'll understand it more and connect to it more. And then they'll take on your writing as if it's, you know, their own in a way, because a good director does take a project on as if it's theirs. You know, they're proud of it. They want to champion it. They want to work really hard for it. So I think more than anything, find someone who's excited. And if you're interviewing them or talking to them, and after they've read the script, they don't seem excited, do not offer them the job. Move on to somebody who is going to be really, really excited about this and champion it as much as you would want them to.
That was really helpful. Thank you.
Good luck. I hope you get something made.
Cool. I think my last question is,
Yeah.
so once you have like a pilot written, because like I've recently written one, what do you think is like the next step to like get it off the ground? Like finding a producer?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends where you're at. If it's written and it's ready to go and ready to shoot, I would say, yeah, you need to get a producing partner on board. If you're going to direct it, that's great, but you're still going to need someone who's going to help you get the whole project off the ground and be brainstorming with you on ways of how are we going to get money, or you want someone in it with you from the beginning. I recommend, if you don't have money to pay them off the bat, like if you're not going to pay them a producer's fee to like help you figure all of these things out, you need to give them back end points and give them skin in the game for the project. Like if anything happens to this, you own 20% of the project. You know what I mean? Make sure that you're creating a playing field that feels really good for the other person and that they're feeling really valued in the project as well. And then you guys can create a game plan of, okay, how do we want to do this? You know, if you happen to have a manager or agent, I would say you got to email the finalized pilot to them and see if they have any connections or networks that might be interested in the show. But since I'm assuming this is maybe a little bit earlier than that, I would say just start the process of making it. You know, get people on board that can help you make it, figure out how you're going to fund it, figure out how much you're going to need to shoot it and shoot it well. And then after you have that product, really try to push it around. Try to get as many eyes on it as you can. Try to put it in festivals that you think it could win at. You know, things like that help garner attention back to your work.
Cool. Thank you so much. So,
of course.
What's next?
Oh boy, what's next? What's next is I'm directing another pilot next week for 6 days, and we've been in pre-production on it for almost 2 months now. So I'm really, really excited about shooting that pilot this next upcoming week. We start on Monday, May 17th here in Los Angeles. It is my second pilot. I'm feeling really good to have another one under the belt. Like, I'm excited for finishing it. Like, I think I'll be really happy on the last day when I'm like, I did another one, you know? But yeah, I mean, in the meantime, I'm just getting a little bit like antsy to get out there and start directing. We've been doing so many rehearsals. It's an ensemble cast, so there's 6 people who are like all kind of equally a part of it. So it's going to be a big directing job in terms of like, you know, blocking and directing the actors' choices and creating cool transitions between scenes. And I mean, I'm just excited to see how it turns out. And I've got a lot of other ideas on the roster to make after this. But for now, I'm just trying to keep my head on straight and stay focused on one project at a time, because I think that's really that's all you can do as a creator. I think getting your deck too messy causes you to lose focus of what you should be doing right now.
Thank you so much and good luck. It was great talking to you.
You too, Bridget. It's always so good to see you.